Today, have there been any signals about possible participation in this contingent, and how do you assess, in your opinion, the chances of success of the Gaza peace plan as a whole?
We have not seen this plan. We have only heard comments about what it consists of. You have just listed the main provisions. I heard that this international body, which will manage, temporarily administer Gaza, is planned to be headed by Tony Blair. He himself, it seems, has already announced this. But I repeat, I do not know the details. I am not aware of what powers he is expected to be given or how Arab countries regard this. I know that some of them have already welcomed Donald Trump's plan, but of course, a final decision will only be made once we hear the opinion of all of Palestine's and Israel's neighbors, and in general the countries of the region, the Arab League, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and most importantly, the Palestinians themselves. I have also heard that they do not want to include representatives of the Palestinian National Authority in this temporary body, not even as observers.
Совета сотрудничества государств залива и самих палестинцев прежде всего. Я слышал, что не хотят включать в этот временный орган даже в качестве наблюдателей представителей палестинской национальной администрации. Да, ну и что касается международных сил по обеспечению безопасности, нет, нас туда никто не приглашал, повторю, мы в принципе только вчера услышали об этом плане, но я читал, что...
And as for the international security forces, no one has invited us there. I repeat, in principle, we only heard about this plan yesterday. But I read that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, commenting on Trump's plan, which in general was announced after Netanyahu's visit to Washington, said that the plan is good, that no changes should be made to it, that Hamas and everyone else should agree with it. And among the positive aspects of the plan, he said Israel would retain control over security in Gaza. This doesn't quite align with the creation of international forces. So, as I repeat, first all the details must be clarified. Thank you.
Спасибо. Корреспондент Синхуа. Уважаемый Сергей Викторович, как вы знаете, Китай недавно на саммите шел...
Respected Sergey Viktorovich, as you know, China recently, in fact, put forward the initiative of ship governance. Russia has supported this initiative. Could you please say what you think is the practical significance of this initiative? Was the possibility of any joint actions within the framework of the ship governance initiative discussed at the SCO and BRICS forums?
Нет, ну, как вы сказали, инициатива была выдвинута буквально за день, вернее, мы узнали о ней за день.
As you said, the initiative was put forward literally a day before. Or rather, we learned about it one day before the SCO summit. We consider it useful and aimed at correcting a situation in which mechanisms of global governance are fully subordinated to the West. As for the International Monetary Fund, for example, the United States prevents the decision to increase quotas for countries of the Global South. The World Bank also sees blatant abuse of Western positions. Recently Ursula von der Leyen said that they would support Palestine, that it should be rebuilt, and that the European Union would allocate 1.5 billion euros for the restoration of Palestine. She said it proudly. Such a huge sum. But how much are they giving to Ukraine? Not to restore Ukraine, but to make it fight against Russia. Hundreds of times more. And recently Ukraine requested a loan of, I believe, 38 billion from the World Bank. And the World Bank said not 38 but 65. This bias, this abuse of multilateral mechanisms for the promotion of their unilateral, geopolitical, selfish goals, this is the problem. And of course the World Trade Organization also needs reforms, because the United States has blocked the work of the dispute settlement body for decades. Above all, it has blocked it to prevent the body from addressing China's complaints about discrimination, about the violation of WTO rules by Western countries in trade with the People's Republic of China.
Злоупотребление многосторонними механизмами для продвижения своих односторонних геополитических эгоистичных целей – это беда. Ну и Всемирная торговая организация тоже нуждается в реформах, потому что там Соединенные Штаты уже не один десяток лет блокируют работу органа по урегулированию споров. Прежде всего блокируют для того, чтобы этот орган не рассматривал обращение со стороны Китая в дискриминации, в нарушении правил Всемирной торговой организации со стороны западных стран в торговле с Китайской Народной Республикой. Ну и Организация Объединенных Наций, конечно же, реформа Совета Безопасности других структур должна быть справедливой, включая, кстати сказать, реформу секретариата ООН, где ключевые позиции, от которых зависят и...
And, of course, the United Nations. Reform of the Security Council and other structures must be fair, including reform of the UN Secretariat, where the key positions, on which depend the functioning of the entire UN system and the distribution of financial resources within the Secretariat structures, are completely occupied and privatized by representatives of NATO and the European Union. This is unacceptable. So we will continue to advocate reform of global governance. As for the practical aspects, we, of course, proceed from the fact that our Chinese colleagues, as initiators of this proposal, will specify their approaches, and we will actively contribute to this.
Сергей Викторович, добрый день. Илья Ермаков, агентство ТАСС.
Recently in Moldova parliamentary elections were held. The result is already known, the ruling party won. Can we say that by using electoral mechanisms, Moldova is strengthening what you call the Russian stronghold?
Of course, Maya Sandu has long been one of the heralds of anti-Russian rhetoric. The elections were fraudulent. I'm amazed that it's possible to manipulate votes so openly. But the main point is that even with manipulations, with the creation of obstacles for residents of Transnistria to vote, bridges were closed, quarantine measures imposed, many could not take part. But even with these manipulations, the patriotic opposition gained practically as much as, or actually more support inside Moldova than Maya Sandu's party.
Далеко не все смогли. Но даже с этими манипуляциями оппозиция патриотическая набрала практически столько же, сколько и, вернее, набрала внутри Молдавии больше, чем партия Майи Санду, и только задействование ресурса при голосовании за рубежом, когда в Европе всех чуть ли не на руках носили на эти избирательные участки.
And it was only by using resources abroad, when in Europe voters were practically carried to polling stations on their hands, while in Moscow and Russia there were only 2 stations, that they managed to win the needed percentage or 0.5%. And even with all the fraud, the result is still very telling. Even with these fraudulent methods, they did not succeed very much.
Сергей Викторович, здравствуйте. Дарья Козлова, Россия-24. Очень много громких заявлений сейчас.
A lot of loud statements are coming in now from Washington. Trump's special envoy, Keith Kellogg, said in an interview with Fox News that Ukraine allegedly has permission to strike deep into Russian territory. J.D. Vance says the issue of supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine is being discussed.
Говорит о том, что обсуждается вопрос поставок ракет «Томагавк» Украине. Рассматривают ли это в Москве как проявление давления со стороны Вашингтона?
Does Moscow view this as a manifestation of pressure from Washington on Moscow? And how will our Russian authorities react diplomatically?
Я думаю, что это результат, прежде всего, давления Европы на Вашингтон, и Вашингтон хочет показать, что...
I think this is primarily the result of European pressure on Washington. And Washington wants to show that it listens to the opinion of its allies. I do not think we are yet dealing with an adopted decision. The Americans do not supply Tomahawks to just anyone. Among Europeans, if I am not mistaken, only Spain and the Netherlands have them. Others they are wary of supplying. And if they think Ukraine is a responsible state that will use them responsibly, it will be surprising to me. Yes, Keith Kellogg and J.D. Vance did speak of this. Kellogg generally takes a fully pro-Ukrainian position, although President Trump always says that he is a mediator and that Ukraine and Russia must negotiate directly. Kellogg also recently publicly advised the Ukrainian regime to accept reality and de facto agree with the current territorial situation.
Всегда говорит, что он посредник, и Украина с Россией должны решать напрямую. И Кит Келлогг недавно публично советовал украинскому режиму принять реальность и де-факто согласиться с тем, что вот территория сейчас такая, какая она есть, и посоветовал не переживать по этому поводу, потому что вот Прибалтика была в составе Советского Союза, мы ее не признавали де-юре, и потом она стала свободной. И так же будет у вас.
He advised not to worry about it, saying that the Baltic states were once part of the Soviet Union, but we didn't recognize it legally, and then they became free. And the same would happen for them, he said. This differs from the position of President Trump. So there are many speakers who simply promote the Ukrainian agenda. But the Kremlin has already stated quite clearly that even if these tomahawks appear in Ukraine, it will not change the military situation.
Sergey Viktorovic. Good day. If you allow me, a question about our key partner in the global south, India. The US administration continues its attempts to force India to give up Russian oil, under the false pretext of allegedly financing the conflict in Ukraine. In your opinion, what are the true reasons for this pressure?
Истинная причина заключается в том, что президент Трамп.
The real reasons lie in the fact that President Trump declared the need for the United States to actively defend its national interests. These include the aggressive promotion of its goods to international markets among its partners and the elimination of competition, in this case, the Russian Federation, under the pretext of the war in Ukraine. But our Indian colleagues have already responded to calls to stop buying oil from Russia. They basically proceed from the position that if the US wants to sell something to India, including oil, then India is ready to sit at the table and discuss conditions.
Покупать в России нефть, они, в принципе, исходят из того, что если Соединенные Штаты хотят что-то Индии продать, включая нефть, то Индия готова сесть за стол переговоров и обсудить условия. А то, как и каким образом торговать с другими странами, включая с Россией, это, в общем, относится к российско-индийской.
But the way in which and with whom to trade, including with Russia, this belongs to Russian-Indian relations. This position has been set out both by Prime Minister Modi and by Foreign Minister Jaishankar. And I believe this position reflects the national interest and national dignity of our Indian friends.
Спасибо.
Добрый день, Сергей Монин, агентство Brazil de Fato. Бразилия играла активную роль в попытке быть посредником.
Brazil played an active role in attempting to mediate the conflict in Ukraine. How do you assess Brazil's current contacts in this context, in the context of building a multipolar world?
У нас очень тесные отношения с бразильскими друзьями. Я был на саммите BRICS и на...
We have very close relations with our Brazilian friends. I was at the BRICS summit, and at the meeting of foreign ministers we had detailed conversations with both President Lula and Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira. We value Brazil's position, which, already a couple of years ago, contained proposals to contribute to solving humanitarian problems in particular. Well, these humanitarian problems are being solved in line with those views put forward by our Brazilian friends. By the way, the Africans, led by South Africa, also formulated similar ideas. And humanitarian issues are being resolved. Prisoners are being exchanged, bodies returned, problems of separated families addressed. Ukrainians had long claimed that tens of thousands of children had gone missing, and that Russia had taken them away. When our delegations once again met in Istanbul, Russia insisted, "Please, give us a list of these children. This is a serious matter." After persistent requests, the Ukrainians gave us a list of 339 children.
Детей пропали, и Россия, значит, их вывезла. Когда встречались в очередной раз в Стамбуле делегации России и Украины, наша делегация настаивала: дайте нам, пожалуйста, список этих детей. Это же серьезный вопрос. После долгих уговоров настойчивых украинцы передали список из 339 детей. Из них большая часть оказалась не детьми, а взрослыми и никаким образом не относящихся к нахождению на территории Российской Федерации. Большая часть оказалась не в России, а в Европе. Поэтому вот эти гуманитарные вопросы нужно решать по-честному, и мы ценим, что Бразилия выступает именно за это. Что касается...
Most of them turned out not to be children at all, but adults, with no relation to Russia. Most of them were not even in Russia, but in Europe. That is why such humanitarian issues must be solved honestly, and we value that Brazil is advocating exactly for that. As for the political aspects of regulation, we explained to our Brazilian colleagues and our other BRICS partners what President Putin has repeatedly emphasized as the main conditions for a sustainable settlement: remove the root causes of the conflict, eliminate the security threats to Russia that the West created with the involvement of the Ukrainian regime, and fully restore the rights of Russians and Russian speakers, which in Ukraine are prohibited by law. That will guide our ongoing cooperation. Thank you very much.